Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Tay Talks Positivity. This is your girl Tay, ready to help you start your week off with some positive energy. Now, I do have to apologize. I thought I had an episode that was already set to be published, but it never published. But better late than never. We're still going to get our affirmation for this week, and we're still going to try to keep our positive mindsets. This week's affirmation is I am capable of doing any and everything I set my mind to. So many times I've started working on businesses and business plans or different projects, but I was never able to fulfill them to completion. When I was in high school, I used to write poetry. I wanted to become a published poet and write my own book of poetry. In my 20s, I wanted to be a fictional book writer. I wanted to be like Sister Soldier and Eric Jerome Dickey. I wanted to be like Shannon Holmes, like Be More Careful, and all those books I read when I was in my 20s. I even went as far as to reaching out to a publisher to try to get an idea of what I needed to do to get my book out. I also had a Facebook page where I would put short story chapters of the book I had started writing. A friend of mine came to me with an idea and wanted me to write a book for them, but that never went past Facebook. I even at one point had my own website for writing. I would have poets or short story authors send me in what they wanted to be posted so other people could read. I did it for a while, but at some point I shied away from it. I dropped the ball, I let it go. I don't know if my love for it went away or what happened, but I never fulfilled it. At one point, I even wanted to own my own food truck. I went as far as to get in the papers from the city and filled them out. But negative thoughts filled my head. Where am I going to get the money to even get this started? Is it going to be profitable? How am I going to even make it profitable? Is it going to be worth it? It took a lot of growing for me to realize that having that negative mindset was the reason that I was never able to fulfill any of those dreams or goals. I grew up in church and my dad is a deacon. The one thing he made sure that me and my brother knew how to do was pray. But as life goes, you grow up, you want to go out and learn how to do things on your own. And I kind of stopped praying the way I used to pray. Recently, again, I started getting back into praying and I started asking God to guide me and show me what it is He had in store for me. I asked Him to show me what He wanted me to do and what my purpose was. And then I asked Him what I needed to do in order to fulfill that purpose. The one thing I kept talking about was that I wanted to start a podcast. Now, I had no idea what I wanted the podcast to be about. I battled with different types of ideas. The a couples podcast where me and my fiance would sit down and have random discussions on different topics, and I thought about doing a short story series podcast, and I thought about the affirmations to try to put something positive out. I was juggling so many different ideas and I just couldn't pick one at the time. I started to feel a little overwhelmed, but I stuck with it and I kept battling and praying and praying. And the one thing that kept coming to me was the affirmations. So many people could benefit from positive energy and positive vibes and ways to, kind of look at their situations from a different viewpoint. I had no idea how I was going to start the podcast. I had no idea what I was going to need in order to start it. The only thing I knew was that having a podcast was something I wanted to do. So I started doing some research to see what equipment I would need, and you have no idea how many different types of microphones there are. I asked my daughter, what are the popular sites for podcasts, and who better to ask than a teenager for something like that? She gave me a list of a couple apps and sites, and that got me started on looking into where I can post the podcast. The more I searched and read, I started to feel overwhelmed with all the information I was getting. I had no idea there were so many options and so many different ways to go about doing it. Usually, once I started to feel overwhelmed, I start to feel stressed and I walk away. But this time I told myself that this is something I wanted to do. And if I wanted to do it, I got to put in the work, and it will end up paying off for me in the long run. So I took a moment and took a deep breath and told myself I'm capable of doing any and everything I put my mind to. Now look where I'm at today. I'm still learning how to iron out the wrinkles, but I did it. I have my own podcast and people actually listening to it. I didn't give up, and I was able to do exactly what I put my mind to. I've even had people reach out to me telling me, thank you for doing what you're doing. You have no idea. Sometimes days get rough, and I take a moment to take a breath and think about my affirmation for the week. Now, whether they're following the affirmation I'm putting out or whether they have their own affirmation, it's helping them to live that positive lifestyle and rethink how they deal with certain situations. Saying that one line to myself a few times every day helped me to not do what I did in the past. I didn't give up. I didn't let that feeling of being overwhelmed take over, and I was able to reach my goal. Imagine the things you can do and the things that you can achieve if you just told yourself, no matter how hard it may feel at that moment, you can achieve it. So think of something it is you want to do. What do you need to do in order to achieve that goal? What helped me reach my goal was I set multiple small goals in order to reach my big goal in the end. I knew I wanted to have my own podcast, so that was my big goal. In order to do that, I had to figure out what I needed to do. So I set up a couple mini goals. I needed to know how to get the podcast out for people to hear. I needed to know all the equipment that I would need. And I needed to know the best way to get the podcast on multiple platforms. After weeks, and I mean weeks, of researching and comparing all my options, I found out what worked best for me to do exactly what I wanted to do. Today, Tay Talks Positivity can be listened to on RSS.com, Stitcher, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podcast Index, Listen Notes, and Apple Podcasts. And I'm still not done. I'm trying to get more platforms. If you ever doubted yourself when it comes to you having what you want in life, take a look at me and you can see You are capable of doing any and everything you put your mind to. This week, my goal is to gain 25 new followers on Facebook. So, if you haven't already, go on Facebook, type in Tay Talks Positivity, go like and follow the page. And if you can, share the page for others to follow as well. If you haven't rated the podcast on any of the platforms that you listen to, do that as well, please. I appreciate each and every one of you that tap in with me every week. Thank you for doing your part in making my dream a reality. Now, I challenge you to set a goal for yourself to achieve this week. Whether it's a big goal or a small goal, put a plan together for you to reach it. Remember, if it starts to feel overwhelming, it's okay. Try breaking it down into several smaller goals and work on each goal one at a time. And repeat this week's affirmation to give yourself that push and mindset to reach your goal. I am capable of doing any and everything I set my mind to. I am capable of doing any and everything I set my mind to. I am capable of doing any and everything I set my mind to. I want to thank y'all again for your patience with me this week. I'm going to try my best to never let that happen again. Remember, affirm it, apply it, and achieve it. This is your girl Tay, wishing you a great and successful work week. Until next week.